Well, good morning.
Morning.
Everybody stay nice and cool. Thank you, Michelle. Everybody staying nice and cool. It's nice and cool in here.
Yeah.
It's like Orlando outside. I don't know what's going on, but for those of you who don't know who we are, I'm Jeff Turcotte.
I'm Kelly Kurtz.
And we're with Simply Well Seniors. And today's seminar in the ongoing series of Aging Well seminar series, today we're talking about scams and financial exploitation, in particular about seniors. And we have a couple of special guests with us today. Backed by popular demand, we have Casey Freeman, and we also have Shelby Hurdle from Fitchburg Police Department. And we'll bring them up in a little bit to talk a little bit about their experience and how to prevent this. But first, quickly a little bit more about us. And this is, again, the Aging Well seminar series. This is our 7th this year. Our tagline, helping seniors navigate the journey to the next place called home. Kelly and I are realtors, but we're different. And that we help folks with the entire process from deciding when they're going to move, helping them decide where they're going to move potentially, and then helping with everything else. So you've probably seen Kelly's car around town. If you ever see this car at Marshall's or Home Goods for an extended amount of time, just chase her out, okay? That's right.
You drive the van, right?
That's right. Yeah, I could. That's right. Kelly, if you wanted to go through kind of our proven process quickly.
Sure. So we started our business with Simply Well, Simply Organized, which is downsizing and decluttering. And we help folks with all aspects of all of those things, donations, consignment, estate sales, things like that. Then we move into our Simply Well Move Solutions, which is our move management division, where we help actually people physically do the move. We're not actually movers. We work with professional movers, but we help with the packing, the sorting, and determining what might go from your old house to your new house. So as part of that downsizing, we help with floor planning and figuring out what items are most important to you to take with you. So we help in that aspect for folks who need it. And then our Simply Well Seniors is really kind of where we put it all together as a real estate division, where we do the estate liquidation, working with folks, estate sales, like I talked about, junk removal. We help with coming up with what makes the most sense for interior, exterior repairs of your property before you're selling, what makes the most sense financially to do or to sell as is. And we also offer professional staging. So in addition to my organizing business, I'm also a certified home stager. So we do that if needed. We help with stager. Yes. Did you say it's helping get the home kind of decorated and looking pretty for pictures and for sale, kind of so it looks like kind of like a model home type that you would see if you go into an apartment building. They have one that's kind of set up. We try to make it look as inviting to people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We help with where we also provide professional interior cleaning with our cleaning crew to help get your home ready for sale, professional photography. We also, work with doing all the professional open house, public open houses, broker open houses, all of those basic things that real estate agents do, but we do a little extra, as you can see.
A little extra.
Yeah.
Sometimes we call ourselves, we're your kids that live in Florida that we're actually here.
Yeah, so we step in for folks who don't have family that can help or don't want to burden their family with all those things. We're kind of the people that do all those things for you or coordinate it.
Or maybe they don't have kids.
Yeah, or just need help with it.
Need help with this.
Yeah.
So
in a nutshell, yeah.
Very good. Okay, so today's topic, again, talking about scams and financial exploitation. So a few slides about some of the facts here, some of the statistics that identity theft in particular can happen to anyone, but the majority of the concern is for older adults, that identity theft for Americans age 60 or older have resulted in financial loss of over $3.4 billion, that's billion with a B, in 2023 alone. And that's far more than any other group of individuals. So 60 or older are really vulnerable with identity theft. Over 13% of older Americans are a victim of some type of financial fraud every year. We see that. Only 1 in 44 cases of financial abuse are ever reported. We're going to talk a little bit about how to report that and when that's appropriate. There's a number of reasons why folks don't report that. That maybe they're embarrassed, and or maybe they just don't think it's something that they can report. Just don't know where to go, potentially. But seniors with cognitive incapacity suffer the greatest economic loss. Now, these are people who are unable to physically or mentally make informed, rational judgments and effectively communicate that. Now, that's really important because those are the people that are most vulnerable. And as the population ages, it's a natural progression. You know, some days I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, and making a good decision sometimes isn't always what I'm doing too. But we all know folks in our circles, maybe they're our parents, maybe they're some other folks that we're caring for, that may fall into this category and may be more vulnerable than what we.
Yeah, these are the folks that the scammers are preying on because they can kind of sense that. So you want to keep a special eye out, like Jeff said. If it's someone in your circle, to check in with them and just, if anything unusual seems to be going on, to delve a little deeper, because sometimes things can be happening that they're not aware of.
Mm-hmm. So how does financial abuse occur? A number of ways. Through the mail, sometimes. On the computer, a lot. On the computer, we get emails all the time about you've been selected for whatever prize, or a free gift from Walmart, but the email address just looks a little strange, or the way the email comes through is just a little odd. I think the delete button is your best friend in those situations. If you're not sure, don't open the email. On the phone, and we'll talk a little bit about one of the scams that's out there as well, that perpetrators try and get you to give some information, some passwords, whatever, over the phone. On the TV or the radio, not so prevalent. In person, though, the traveling salesman, the folks that are posing as repairmen, those kinds of folks. So it's still out there as well. So who are these folks? Surprisingly, sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's friends, neighbors, or acquaintances. Professionals. Sometimes it's financial planners, lawyers, doctors, caregivers, guardians, plugging themselves in to places they shouldn't be plugged into. The lack of money, or the lure of potentially receiving a lump sum of money, or some money that's not yours, the lure of that makes people do funny things and cross lines, especially for some of these folks that may have not a lot. Strangers such as telemarketers, door-to-door salesmen, repair people, new love interest. We'll talk a little bit about the romance scam situation. TV or radio announcers as well.
Sometimes even healthcare workers. Sometimes you have a new health aide or a house cleaner, or somebody that's all of a sudden the most wonderful person in the world, and then they're asking like, oh, if you need help with something here or there, I can help you with that. So you have to watch some of these people that are trying to insert themselves into your life all of a sudden and seem too good to be true. They probably are. So another thing to think about.
So why are older adults targeted? Why are they targeted? Anybody have any idea? Any answers?
Because we're older, and most of us had children, I did not, but we think everybody's a friend. We trust everybody until they do something stupid or do something wrong.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else have any idea? Right. They might not have the cognitive skills. They're easier targets. Correct. How about that's where the money is?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest reasons. Like you said, if you're retired, you're often at home or accessible. You're not at work, typically at a job. Older adults with memory problems are a particularly attractive target, like we said. older adults may be more trusting as well. These are all the reasons why the perpetrators target this, but oftentimes because it's where the money is. That's where the wealth has been accumulated. So, okay. So,
Hi, curtain number one. Casey.
That's not my graphic.
So for the next 10 or 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we're gonna, Casey and I are gonna have a conversation a little bit about some of these scams. Casey is a financial, what are you?
I'm the resident director of the Merrill office in Westboro. So I manage the wealth management office in Westboro, 12 advisors, but I'm also a financial advisor with my wife and another partner. And I've been there 20 years.
It was a lot of experience here. So when I mentioned to Casey that we're going to be doing a seminar about this topic, he volunteered to come back and provide some information. So a lot of this information is from a Bank of America Merrill Lynch presentation as well, condensed. But Casey is very knowledgeable about this information. So top 12 scams targeting older adults, and we'll go through 4 of these. We won't go through all of them today. Social Security impersonation scams, we've seen those. Romance scams, telemarketing and robocall scams, investment schemes, you all heard of Bernie Madoff, tech support schemes, spousal death and funeral scams. That's just bad taste. Medicare, Medicaid fraud, home repair contractor scams, sweepstakes or lottery. The grandparent scam is, again, that's a low blow. Employment scams, COVID-19 scams, not so much. We're kind of past that. But today, we're going to talk about romance scams.
So the number one scams that we see, romance, telemarketing. I don't necessarily see investment because that would be me doing it. But we get updates on people that are preying on folks, and so we get actually the sanctioning, the fines, the suspensions as an update of what people did wrong and how they actually punish them in my industry. The tech support piece of phantom hacking. My mother was almost a victim of that just a couple weeks ago. And then the grandparent one, I've seen that a few times. And these are all my clients. We have 300 clients, and I say 30% have had something occur, and they tell us because we most of the time are either stopping them or hearing about some sort of money move or nephew or grandchild, etc., or even a friend that is now there, getting a little bit more aggressive with doing things with them.
Mm-hmm. I was telling Casey a little bit earlier that the banks and financial institutions are starting to be a little more conscientious about when there's a large sum of money being withdrawn from an account. And I recently had gone to my credit union, withdrew some cash. It wasn't a huge sum of money, but it was a good sum of money. And the teller asked me, I don't know if I looked like maybe I didn't know what I was doing.
Easy to take advantage
of. Yep. The look I had on my face.
Too trusting.
Right. He asked if I was being, if I felt coerced or forced by someone to withdraw this money. And I thought very hard about the answer. and he looked at me and said, we have to ask everybody. He said, because it at least once a week, there's someone that says yes. Or there's someone that's coming in that comes in on a regular basis. They're always very happy. And this week, they come in with someone else that this person doesn't recognize. That person is standing off to the side over here, maybe. And the conversation's a little bit different. Oh, it happens once a week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about romance scams.
Does anyone know what a romance scam is?
people on the Facebook, for instance, oh, I saw your beautiful picture, you have such a lovely profile. And I've been, my husband passed some years ago, so it's like, oh boy, another love interest, what a faker. But some of them, and they almost always have the same intact blurb as every other one, so they're easy, real easy to pick out.
Yeah.
It's the one who changes is what he's writing to, those are the ones you never have.
Right.
And I've had to report so many people on Facebook for so long. Now they've got my Facebook tagged, and as soon as I start getting into a conversation with somebody I don't know, they knock it out.
Oh, okay. So that's
That
good.
is encryption. It's like,
Right.
it says, I learned how to go around that, but it's like, hey, I want to use that.
Oh, right. Right.
There's also like the companionship websites that people go on to try to meet a partner, or there's either been a widower or a widow. They're trying to find companionship in some degree. So they go on to like a Match.com or something like that, and they find a profile that they think is someone that is interested in talking to them more, but it's just a scammer posing as someone that's interested, and it's probably a 35-year-old male. It's and so that, and they're really trying to build a relationship with you and then build trust and then take advantage of it. An example that we had recently in my practice was a man that his wife died 3 months ago from cancer. He went onto a website. He started talking to what he thought was a woman that was also in a similar situation. She ended up saying to him that I'm really having trouble with bills, and really times are tough, and if you could just, you seem like a nice guy, if there's any way you could help me. He went to the bank and withdrew $4,000 from the branch. They said to him, what are you doing? What's the story? Like, just kind of asking, and they called us because we show up in their profile. And we ended up having to talk to him, like, well, so what's going on? He told us the story, and we're like, are you really sure? Like, you really? And we said, push back a little bit. And he did for about a week, and then they disappeared. So I'm like, that's exactly what they were trying to do. They moved on. But he was at the bank taking the money out, just trying to help her to pay her bills, supposedly. And luckily that someone caught him to avoid it. But at the same time, like you're saying with the trust, you trust everyone, and someone that paints a good picture that's in a similar scenario as you, and they're lonely, they need some sort of companionship, could you fly me out? Things like that, and we can meet up, etc. That's another part of it, where they say, just give me the money, I'll buy a ticket, and we'll go meet up at somewhere, and they never show up. So it's just tough because there's a lot of grief, a lot of times that people are looking for a way to put their past behind them, so they get taken advantage of.
Right. So a few tips: take new online relationships slowly. Pressure to move quickly could be a red flag that their motives are not genuine. Confide in someone you trust about the relationship, or reconsider, at least proceed with caution if they note any concern. And that's you're in that position. You're in that position with that situation because you're someone that person can confide in.
And something on that piece, in my firm, we have something called a trusted contact form, where every client should have someone that's not on their accounts that we can call if there's something weird that's going on. We can't just talk to them about their accounts, but we often will call and say, hey, your mom called and she's never really done anything like this before. It might be the son, and we'll say, she's never taken money out like this, and all of a sudden she is. Like, this seems a little strange, out of the ordinary, and can you go talk to her, et cetera. And a lot of times she's was a victim or almost a victim of something. Mm-hmm. Like, Mom, what are you doing? You don't need to get the driveway done. Like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Why did you have to? So there's that at our firm. We try to have that for everyone, just because we see it the most. Like, you might see your doctor once, twice a year. Your advisor, you tend to talk to 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year. Mm-hmm. So we see the most of this activity. Or also, if there's cognitive decline, we see it a lot. So that we can call someone and say, your dad's doing some weird things. He's mm-hmm. calling in every week now, asking for information. We just gave him. So you might need to maybe do power of attorney or do something else because he might make some mistakes that he doesn't realize he's making.
Right, right. A couple of the other tips. Never send money or gifts to someone you haven't met in person, not for an emergency, not for travel expenses to meet, not even if they send you money first. That's sometimes the ploy here. They'll send you a check first and you'll deposit it, and then that can trigger access to an account.
Yeah, cleared check.
Right.
Because a lot of times some banks stamp the back with where it was deposited,
Right.
which is really wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And then if they've sent you their picture, try reverse image search. We all know how to do that, right? Everybody, right? No.
I saw that and I was like, really? You can do that? I didn't have no idea either. So
You can do it though. If their picture shows up tied to another name, it's likely a scam. That's
like I send you my picture and as a potential suitor, and then you do that Google search, you find out I work for Merrill Lynch. And you're like, wait, that's not what he said he
no,
was.
right.
He was somebody else.
exactly. So, okay.
Can you talk a little bit, what was that check thing? What are you talking about? Stamping it? How do they access your account?
Some banks in the past were like, it showed where it was deposited, all the information on a cleared check. Yeah. Yeah, on the back. They started to star some of them out, but there still gives a lot of information on the back.
Because when they receive the check back,
Right, but then how do they use that information? I get they have a checking account, but like they need a username and password, right?
Well, not necessarily, because they can actually spoof checks. So someone could literally, they could counterfeit a check by putting your checking account number on there. They use a really high number or something because they know it'll clear. So like your check you wrote might have been number 342, and they spoof a couple that are in the thousands. So it's not as common anymore, but there are fraudulent checks. That's how they do it, though. They get a hold of the checking account number, and then the routing number is public. You can look it up online for a certain bank, and then you just print the check, and then they forge signature, and there you go. It's pretty quick. It's not that hard.
right?
It's more digital now, but that was like the classic way to do it.
Right.
They'd obtain your check. Either you mailed them a check, and now they have your check number, your checking account number. So it's not hard. That's actually a pretty easy one, right?
Okay. Investment schemes, and again, the when it's too good to be true, probably need to look into that.
When you win $1 million in Botswana?
Well, so the lottery scheme's one thing. Like the Prince of Nigeria says you won the lottery. This is more like I call you and I say, hey, we got this really good thing going. It's an oil field in Texas, and there's only a few people allowed to get into it. And it's 10% a month guaranteed. You don't, no risk. You act now, that kind of thing. So it's right. And it's it's all robo-dial, so it's not a lot of effort. So they're just dialing out as fast as they can. It's a call center. And so there's a lot of people working on it. Eventually you get somebody that says, okay, tell me more. And then they work on opening an account with you, deposit funds, they withdraw it, see you later. So, or like an annuity that pays all this extra funds, a bonus if you deposit now. Or they'll say, I'll give you a discount if you buy today. It's a really good deal. Another part of in the investment scheme world for people like myself is we see stories of bad apples. I would say I'm working with her. I have a practice, and I'm not necessarily one of these scammers per se, but then I'm working with her, and eventually I run up credit card debt or my mortgage, and I get into trouble myself, and I might say to her, you know, there's this account that we could open, and I'll be on it so that I can help you like move things around whenever it's needed. And then next thing you know, they're moving money out of the brokerage account into the checking account where my name is on now, and I can use those funds legally, really, because my name's on the account. I get updates on that once a month of different things that have happened where people that do what I do got into trouble. A recent one was a broker was fined $385,000 for doing a few of those activities where they opened accounts for people, got rollovers, etc., opened checking accounts, and then siphoned money into them where he was joint and he was paying personal expenses to the tune of like 400 grand. Paying 100,000 in credit card debt was one of them. And then they either get barred from the industry, they get fined, sanctioned, etc. So, but that's where the trust comes in, because you might have worked with them for years and then they get into trouble themselves and then they use your trust against you, right? But
So how would you protect against that if you already have an existing relationship? Are there some signs that
a lot of,
you're aware of?
yeah, a lot of the times what people were doing is they were signing blank forms because they had that trust. So there was a lot of the evidence is in there. It says people remembered initialing this form that was filled out, but then they don't recall, or they recall these forms were blank, but they knew him and it was not a big deal, etc. There's addiction that can cause that, or some gambling debt, etc. So the easiest way is to just know what you're signing. Or you have a friend or a family member, you bounce it off and say, this is what do you think of this? You ever heard of this before? So that's where in my world, we have compliance that protects a lot of that. But in the independent side, meaning like you could be in a strip mall, Fred Smith Investments, there's not necessarily the same supervision. Like to a fault, my firm is overbearing on it, but that's to protect us and protect them from you suing because we did something wrong. So it's very, very uncommon for it to happen in the big firms because of all the oversight. Okay.
So good tips, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. Be cautious of investments promising high yields. Hey, I got an account that'll pay you 10% on every month. No. Do your research, please, and reconsider making investments. Reconsider making investments under pressure and pressing time constraints. Like Casey said, I'll get you this today, I'll get you a discount today. If you do it today, you gotta act now, today. That's a big red flag. So, all right, tips to avoid tech support scams, internet fraud. That seems to be more prevalent as well, about when folks are being called, maybe they're saying, stay off the computer, right? The caller might say that, I need to optimize your hard drive or whatever it is. I need your password, to get into your computer, those kinds of things.
So the most common one right now that actually almost happened to my mother was the pop-up that said there's something like an update needs to be installed, etc. And so she called a number and they said to her, okay, let me have your IP address and I can tell what's wrong with it. And she was getting a little skeptic, etc. But at the same time, they said they were from Microsoft. And they told her well, we can check. And they actually worked to try to remote in, and so that they could be able to see what she's doing on the desktop. And what they would do then is plant a virus that's in there, and then they can view everything she does. So luckily she stopped because she was like, this doesn't make any sense. But the way it would actually work is the person remotes in, plants something in your computer, then they say, why don't you log on to your bank site so we can make sure that there wasn't any fraudulent purchases or something. And then you log on to the bank site, they watch you type in username, password, and then they see your accounts, and then they can tell if you're worth targeting. And they might move on because you have $1,000, or they could see 100,000 in a savings account, and now they can actually watch everything you do and actually access your accounts. So it can happen again fast. Right. So that's the phantom hacker piece where they act like they're from a reputable organization. They might call you saying they're from Bank of America, your credit card has been compromised. Why don't we log on to your computer to make sure? My mother said that another call said that her card is being used on like chinaporn.com.
Wow.
Sorry for the language, but that's what they told her, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like what? This is crazy. Like it had to be like fraud." And I'm like, "Wait, whoa. Like just go on the app and see first before like you do what they're asking you to do." And there was no compromise. It was just somebody dialing in, saying like, "I can help you make sure that the fraud didn't happen and safeguard your computer at the same time."
But it's all a scam, right?
That's the most prevalent though right now.
And the Apple iPhone, remember that one? They call and they say, oh, we're just confirming the order for your Apple iPhone is being delivered. And I always say, oh yeah, that's okay, you can put that through, it's for my sister, and they hang up right back.
Right.
Yeah, that's the number one now though, is that reach out, act as a reputable organization,
Right.
and then say they can help you update your antivirus or something. Or your computer's at risk of getting hacked. So let me work with you to prevent that. And they're literally doing what they're telling you they're trying
Right.
to stop.
No matter what anybody says to me when they call, I say, no thanks, I'm good. And hang on. Every
That's
time, no matter
Right.
what it is, I'll probably say it to my doctors.
Yep.
Tip number 3, there are local computer tech companies, in the area. So, certainly do your research. There's quite a few that are members of the Chamber of Commerce that can, if you feel that your computer is running slow or you need an upgrade or you have a virus, those kind of things, trust a local representative to help you with that, not just someone calling you on the phone.
Because the other part of that piece where they view your account is if they see $100,000 in there, they'll hold your computer ransom and they'll block it, and they'll know that you have the money. So they'll say, okay, I'll unblock everything, and if you pay me $50,000, and they know you have it. So that's the thing. That's the ransom piece.
Right. Okay. The grandparent scam. This one's disturbing. We all know folks that have grandkids, lots of grandkids, and grandkids that they don't necessarily talk to every day or call them infrequently, or they're someplace in the other part of the country, potentially, and don't have regular updates with them. Our grandkids can't pick up the phone yet, but wait till they can. It's a whole different story. So let's talk a little bit about this one.
There's a couple of variations for this one. Now it's using AI where they're actually spoofing their voice, and they're using it to sound like it. The one we recently had didn't involve that, but it was a call to one of my clients and said, hey, your grandson is in jail. He got arrested for a DUI, and this is the attorney just calling to say, okay, why don't you, we need you to get a retainer, go to the bank, take out $5,000. We'll send a courier from the law firm. Here's the number you can call to verify that he's in jail. There's a courthouse, and we'll call you back in a few minutes, just acting like no big deal. He called the number, and everybody told me, he's like, the guy picked up and said, courthouse. And I'm like, who does that? That's where he kind of caught on a little bit. But by that time, he'd already gone to the bank, had taken the money out, was at his house, was just calling that number to verify, and they were going to send a courier. He had it in a FedEx envelope. And in the meantime, he called his son, who said, what are you talking about? Like, that's not, like whatever his name, like Jim is fine. Like he's at school. Like, what do you mean? And he was that close though. And it's because they were saying, oh, he can't talk. He already called your son or whatever it was, and he can't talk right now, but if you don't want more to happen to him, we got to try to get him out because they're going to put him into general population or whatever it is. And he's 79. So he was like, oh, my grandson, oh my gosh, like, let me just do what I can and I'll deal with it later. And he said he was that close to giving that money until he called the courthouse. And that kind of made him a little hesitant. Then this new one though about using the voice is really scary because now it's like first person. So your grandson is calling you, saying that they're in trouble or they need something or they're like stuck somewhere, their car broke down and that you need to like wire this place money to be able to fix it. so I can get back on the road. And it's actually one of your grandchildren's voice type thing, which I don't know how they necessarily get it, but I think now with YouTube and all the other things that are out there, like children are on making videos, like this is YouTube. So like my voice, his voice is now public, that you can use that to create a fake voice.
Yeah. So that's scary stuff. I like tip number 3. Consider setting up a password that only family members will know.
It's like a safe word.
Like a safe word.
So like if you would ask your grandson, what's the safe word? And like it's calamari, and they don't know what it is.
Right.
So
Yeah. So, all right. Great. Thanks, Casey. So this next part of the presentation, we have a member of law enforcement. Okay. So everybody,
I've scared people enough.
everybody take out your license
I'll let the
registration,
police scare
please.
you more now.
Shelby Hurdle from Fitchburg Police, and we're gonna bring some chairs up, and we're gonna have kind of a question and answer chat. So,
Okay.
Shelby, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. I just a quick story that Shelby's supervisor is a friend of mine, and I had asked him if he might be able to help with this seminar, and I kind of thought maybe like, no, I just don't have time. I really don't. This isn't anything I'm really interested in or that kind of thing. But he was so excited. Chris was like, I got the person for you, and she's gonna be there. And just so tell me a little bit about what your role at Fitchburg Police
Sure.
is.
I do like my captain. So most of my career, I've been with the city since '01. Most of my career, I've worked just as patrol in the police cruiser 3 to 11. And we all wear different hats. And one of my hats while I was in patrol is the elder liaison. And I got that position because I had no seniority whatsoever. And they said, here you go. Thank you. So I did that as a volunteer part. Now I'm senior enough to be in the community engagement department of our department. And we do a lot of community outreach. We also do CIT, is critical incident team, where we have a clinician and we go out and find folks that need some help. So the elder liaison part falls under the community engagement. And I reach out like I am now. And I sit on different boards to bring back as much information as I can back to Fitchburg. Leominster does the same thing. I am a Red Raider. But I try to learn something from everybody and to bring it back to our community to keep our elders safe.
Thank you. So while you're all warmed up here, so one of the questions that I sent them questions to prepare. I just sent them last night, so they didn't have a lot of time, but at least this is all things that are gonna roll off your tongue. So in your line of work, what are you seeing as one of the top scams that is affecting the senior population?
So the romance scams are huge, but we seem to have a lot of the grandparent scams lately. They're still going strong. Can I give I have a report with me. Can I give an example?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, I have a little cheat sheet. So this is actually one of the reports from our city that we've actually taken. And it's very similar to exactly what you were describing. So we have the grandparents. So granddad answers his personal cell phone, and it's his grandson on the other side. And we'll say his name is Isaiah, and it was his voice. So Isaiah says, I got in trouble, same thing, operating under the influence. But in this case, he hit another car, and in the car was a pregnant woman that was 7 months pregnant. So he is in a world of hurt here. So he said, I need money. Here's the number. Call my lawyer and send me the money. So again, pulled at his heartstrings. He's going to send the money. He calls the lawyer. Yep, I'm his lawyer. I need $8,800. Same deal. Courier's coming, right? Within 10 minutes. So the courier did. The envelope, write the number on the envelope. Okay, he did. It was like an Uber. An Uber came. They gave the money to the Uber, and then they called the police. So here we are. showing up. It's the white Focus. And you're like, okay. So, so there were two officers there, and one of them had the white Focus for who knows why. And the other officer was talking to the grandparents. And the Uber driver had the job to take the package and bring it to Rhode Island. And she was like, yeah, I'm all in. Because there's nothing fishy about that, right? Carrying one package to the next. So she waited. The other officer got the story from the grandparents, and what he was told is to put the money in the envelope, same number, and give it to the Uber driver. So he did. But he put Monopoly money in. Isn't it? So he definitely outsmarted all of them. Within minutes, the Uber driver no longer had a task. It was removed from her profile. She was no longer going to Rhode Island. All of it had disappeared. So at that point, it got to the detective bureau. Our detective unit tried to follow up. The attorney answered the phone and said, oh, yeah, I'm from Boston, gave a different number. So the detective was pushing him for answers, and the attorney felt that we were the scam artists and hung up the phone.
Oh.
So he called back again and again and again, and he got a voicemail, and then he got nothing. And then the number was no longer in service. So he sent that off to the feds so that they can investigate as well or keep it under loops. But nothing was missing this time. But there are other cases for $16,000, $17,000, $18,000, $34,000, and it's gone. It's long gone, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Wow, that person was smart enough.
Really?
To complete,
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I like that. Really. Yeah, really.
I was reading the report, and I'm like, oh, no. And then we got to that point. That was great. It made me chuckle.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of the collaborative efforts that law enforcement is involved in to try and get this word out and that kind of thing. So things like what we're doing today, but what else? Are you collaborating with banks or local institutions?
Oh, absolutely. So I sit on the Money Management Board, which is part of the Aging Services here in Leominster. And there are certain banks, bank tellers that are on it, law enforcement. And so we get together and we share the information. Like this scam is going on here, that scam is going on there. I think it was about 2 years ago, we went on Fitchburg Access Television, and we kind of did a similar panel discussion, giving out every information and what each person does and how we can get this information out. We do, talks in our neighborhoods and our high rises and whatnot. And we also have a Facebook page, and I think everybody has a Facebook page nowadays. So just like them. You can like Fitchburg, Leominster, anywhere. And there's a scam going on, we'll throw it up on our Facebook page so then you're aware for it. Because before you know it, the phone's going to ring and you won that trip to Bahamas or where have you, and you already know.
Right.
So we do a lot of outreach that way.
Okay. Casey, you mentioned a couple of scams, that you've seen already, and what's kind of most popular out there. Same question to you. What seems to be happening on a weekly basis in your world?
We have one of our compliance supervisors consistently gives us the updates on prevalent scams from like the FBI website. We both printed FBI printouts over there due to press releases. It's funny, she brought one, I brought one. So our firm consistently just sends it weekly about what's happening. And we also share specific people that it happened to in the firm. So like we said the one with the widower, the romance scam, like I submit that and say, hey, this happened to one of my clients. So then that gets shared so that there's more details. And our firm continually broadcasting to advisors and employees that it's happening. And it might not happen to me personally in our practice, but it's that way I'm aware if I see something. And I can share it with clients at the same time. Hey, watch out for this. Us personally, we do seminars like this for just my team, where we invite clients and we share with them what to do, what not to do, how to watch out. So
let's talk a little bit about that. So what should somebody do? I mean, who do they report this to? If that transaction had actually gone through, and then that person said, that was the wrong thing to do, who are they reporting it to?
You call the local police. That's your first step. So call us. Let us know that this has happened. Now, there are limitations on what we can do, basically with the information. So in this case, there wasn't much information and it all became anonymous, or we didn't know or identify who the suspect was. So there's not much we can do locally with that information, but we can take that information and share it so that someone else can learn. And of course, we put it in the report and then it moves on to other agencies. So we can charge people, larceny, identity fraud, things like that, and go to court. And we'd be happy to do so. The problem that it comes with is if you don't know the victim, you are the victim, if you don't know the suspect, or the suspect is a family member. So maybe you don't want to go to court because your granddaughter, took your ATM card and used it. Because you, as the victim, will have to go to court and possibly go into proceedings, which could be up to a year. So everything needs to line up. You have a victim, you have a suspect, and you have a court case to move forward. Now, that doesn't always happen, but that would be an ideal situation. Now, once you call the police department, there's so many different agencies that you can call. Like you can call Casey, you can call the Attorney General. So the information that we have is on internet crime. And what they did is they created grab one when you leave. It's called the Internet Crime Computer Center. So the government got together and decided that the right agencies aren't getting all of the information. So you can report that same crime to this agency and they'll distribute it to either local, state, federal, or international. So the more people that you report it to, the better. So there's a whole thing on mass.gov. It's wonderful. It's in the back. And it's all about financial fraud. So it says if you are receiving phone calls, this is what you can do. Or if you're receiving mail, you can do this. You can call the postmaster. Now, those are all extra steps. If you're willing to take, then go ahead and take it. But the number one thing is to call your local police department.
And in my company, we have a financial crimes unit. So if something happens to a client of mine, we report it to them. They actually work with the police. So I don't contact them directly, but there's a whole division that literally does that. Because a lot of times it's the bank wants their money back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Are you finding that you're seeing more family members scamming elders or more strangers or a mix of both, if you had to break it down?
I would say strangers, because when the family members are, very rarely do they report it. So it's probably happening, it's just not getting to us.
And with me, it's 50-50. I see the outside third party, but I also see the son, the grandson, the daughter. A recent one we had was the father passed away. The mother was in kind of hospice. One brother got access to her online because she had said, I need these bills paid. He noticed that she had been giving the other brother money over the last couple of years. He got jealous, started to move money himself. He ended up trying to go online and changing beneficiaries on accounts too, because he was scorned. And he's now being charged because it was fraud. He wasn't allowed to do a lot of these things. And so there's this whole big narrative that's going on with this person, because then the mother died. And so he's saying, I'm a beneficiary, I want all this money. And they can see all the activity through the history, knowing that it wasn't her, it was him. So like, you were illegally doing all these things. It's not your money. So he's filing complaints against us that we froze the money, but he's trying to obtain it illegally. So I'd say 50-50 third party and relative. I see a lot of scary relative stuff. It's sad.
That is.
Not just fraud, but fights.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the estate planning one, just the fights that happen when someone passes away and the sister versus the other sister.
Now, what
Pretty
happens
sad.
if a family member calls you, they're worried about their mother or father or aunt or uncle, and they're suspecting something? Are you able to work with them directly, or do you need permission from the actual client who it's happening to? Because they could be also imposing that there's a problem. It's probably a really tricky.
So we would call the client and say, can you just tell me about some of these things? Not necessarily saying your daughter called, your son called, but we'd look through the activity and say, can you describe what's going on here? looks a little strange, and usually they just tell us. And if they don't tell us, then we get really suspicious. And but most of the time we end up just calling the client and asking their opinion, their description of what's going on. Because at the same time they know like we're the gatekeepers. So like we can shut the accounts down if need be. So not that we threaten them, but we can say like, just let me know.
So speaking of that, what are some other resources and tools that that seniors can avail themselves of to help protect themselves? I mean, we talk about credit freezes, in your situation. We talk about keeping your passwords safe and those kind of things. But you being a gatekeeper of investments and those kind of things, that's one way. But are there any other tools particularly?
I'd say don't use a lot of the websites. A lot of these things have apps that are much more secure than using a website for Fidelity or Bank of America. The apps are much more secure than a website. The other tools would be, there's one piece over there, like how to safeguard yourself, which has a checklist where you can go to Equifax, TransUnion, all these different areas. And then some of the tips were just like avoid some of these conversations, avoid things that are suspicious. But honestly, a lot of it's just take a minute to process before you just click the link in an email. A link that might say like your UPS delivery is scheduled for tomorrow. Here's the tracking number, and somebody's like, I did order from Amazon, and they're just like, oh, boom, and yeah. So that like it just happens fast. So we tell people just be careful. Just go slow with some of the things like that. Some are really obvious, but a lot of them aren't. They actually try to catch us at my company by sending emails that look a little weird, and the address will say like Bank O America, no F, saying like, yeah, your HR profile needs to be updated. And they catch people like me clicking on it just because they're going too fast. And then you click. If you don't click it, or you're supposed to report it, you get an email like, "Congratulations, you detected a fish." Right? So they do it to protect us too.
Okay. So I know we talked a little bit about the technology with the AI and the voices, impersonating a grandchild or someone over the phone. Are there any other trends that you're seeing that you're currently working on and seeing down the line that you're like, wow, that's new. I've never seen that one before.
Well, every day is something new. I mean, there's new technology. They're going to be a new scam. I think the Amazon one is replaying often, where you get that email that your Amazon account has been hacked. And then, you provide your credit card number and what have you. And what we're seeing is that the people didn't have an Amazon account in the first place.
Oh.
Right. So they're sending money for something that they didn't have. Or Bitcoin seems to be, flying around as well. So same thing. If it's too good to be true, it most likely is. But what you should do is figure out what's out there. So play your own detective and go home, do a search engine, kind of like a Google, and put your name in there. And a lot of things is public. So whatever comes back, that's out there. So if someone calls you and they actually did a little research on you, then they could know where you live or who your family members are. If they really wanted to do a lot of research, they could go on your social media accounts and find out that, yes, your grandson did win the soccer game last weekend and things like that. So once you know what's out there, then you know what everybody else knows. And there's a lot of things that are public. So for me personally, I have a P.O. box, but you can find my signature online from my mortgage. So if you really want to look and you're not even that computer savvy, you'll find the information out. So once you know what's out there, then you know what everybody else knows. And then you want to put all of your things, and I'm sure they mentioned it before, about on private, and things about your social media, because whatever you put out there, it's never going to go away. It'll be there forever.
In 2023, and a little bit into 22, and a little bit in the beginning of this year, I had a lot of trouble with my workers' credit union debit card. And those magnetic sleeves, you're supposed to put them in, really are helpful. But sometimes at the ATM, there'd be a whole bunch of cards, and I'd feel pressured, and I'd stuff it down in my purse. not put it in the sleeve, and then I'd go in a store, and there's almost every time you go in a store, there's somebody standing there, just standing there like they're waiting for somebody, and they're scanning your card as you walk by. And I had so much money stolen out of my account. Workers' Credit Union was very good, they put it all back. And then recently I stepped on one of those things that, a Comcast, we have a rewards program, and they don't.
Yeah.
And I slipped into that, so I had to go see Workers' Credit Union today after to see you. But it's like, they're really good about it.
Yes.
And every time, it was supposed to be a legitimate thing, I went on Facebook, I was looking, this is a lantern that floats in the water, and it's good for boaters, and it's good for camping, and it was like $75, and I said, no. And I said, I thought it was too expensive. I never went, I just went through it, scrolled through it to find out what the price was. I never put my information in, I never even said I wanted it. I jumped out and I wanted to think about it. And they somehow got my information, and they charged me for it every month on the same date, until I finally realized there's something going on in my checking account, and again, Workers' Credit Union took care of that, but they've had a lot of trouble with that.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, monitoring your account and seeing what the activity is there and reporting it to your financial institution, that's
The odd thing is, I just scrolled through to see what and I never even clicked on it, and they got it.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of sophistication
So
out
we
there.
shouldn't really buy anything on Facebook, right? I mean,
No. not typically. Oh, boy. All right, so with the time we have remaining, unless you wanted to bring up anything else that we didn't touch on, that I really appreciate the information that you brought and the information that I learned something that, I'll Google myself this afternoon and see what comes up.
You'll be amazed.
And just in Google, put in your name, see what
Research
comes up
engine.
as public information. I know. Yeah, put
You
in
can
your
do
phone
that
number,
too,
see where
yeah.
it comes up.
And everything that's out there.
Most everything.
You probably can find quite a bit, because a lot of things are public.
All right,
Somebody stand there.
Yes.
that's what people know. But we'll ask if there's anybody else that has any other questions or anything else that they want to bring up.
Scary.
It is. Yes, Carol.
I just think that, this is fantastic, and it just makes me so aware. But in the real situations that you're describing, they're so real, and they're so telling and demanding, and they're heart-wrenching. So the grandparent schemes are they're no-brainers. You're just gonna run to the bank. You just, even though, I know there are scams like this, but this is my family, and it's heart-wrenching, and you're never gonna do that. And you hear now with AI, and you have to be so careful when you answer your phone on your words. If someone says, "Can you hear me?" you're never supposed to say yes, because they're recording these words in your voice, just like you're saying.
Yeah, for prompts.
So, when it's happening, you're not really thinking until suddenly you get it, but you've already said all kinds of things. And the whole Bernie Madoff thing. He was so well known and popular and liked and trustworthy, always. Who would ever question him before you do anything? It's just so scary to think that you're such a victim in everything, and it's really hard.
And it's big business. It's big business, so it's just going to continue.
It really is, and it's complicated and sophisticated. It used to be, and we see it changing, but we still give in. Used to be you'd get a phone call and it was totally scripted. But now, it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's so personal that you feel like you know the person on the phone, that you just volunteer it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you see it much anymore. Remember, the big one a couple of years ago was the IRS.
Oh, yes.
That was everybody got a call from the IRS saying you owe interest and penalties and hurry up, and we're like, they don't call, they send letters. Like that's what. Right. And so the banks too. The banks typically don't call you. They'll send you a letter saying call this department, etc. We don't typically call out just to talk to you per se. But the IRS one, that was the big one for a while. Like it was, and that one was scary because everybody's like, taxes. Oh my gosh, like I'm in trouble. And they're like, what do I have to do?
Send a gift card.
Right? Oh yeah. All right. Yeah. But that's where if you just slow down, you take a step back, you're like, wait, this is weird, right? Like that's just,
We
you have to try to calm down a little
Yeah,
bit.
absolutely. We get text messages from our real estate brokerage, Keller Williams, all the time from somebody saying they're our broker saying, well, I'm at an open house. I need a couple Dunkin' Donuts gift cards. Can you get them to us? And so when they first started doing it, you're thinking, oh yeah, Mark needs some cards. He's giving out a giveaway or whatever. But then Mark will send us a text. That was the fake Mark asking. Don't do it. Like we all laugh now, but. There's like little things that only you think, yeah, they would ask for something like that's reasonable, and you have to really question. We just had a client, she was going to be here today, but she had a doctor's appointment, but she said we could share her story, and I hope she did. She actually was getting injections in her eye, which was the worst thing you could think about going to. I'd rather be sitting here than getting an injection in my eye, for sure. But she had her financial planner. She got a call from somebody saying they were investigating her financial planner, and they wanted to talk to her on the down low about it. They were doing investigation thinking that the planner was doing something fraudulent. So they actually got her to the point where she was on her cell phone talking to, or had her cell phone on talking to these people who were investigating, and she had her financial planner on the phone, and they wanted to hear her account numbers and all this information. And she got down the road a little bit till finally her son realized something big was going on, and then they contacted and found out it was all trying to steal her money. But same cases probably had these exact stories, but they had her really believing that she couldn't talk about it because they were investigating her person for potentially fraudulently taking her money when it wasn't her at all. It was these people that she was talking to. So it was so believable. She's so embarrassed about it. And then you start to question your own cognitive abilities because you think you're sharp, but they're so believable that you just trust somebody that they're looking out for you when they're really not.
Yes, Michelle.
So you bring up embarrassment, and I think that's probably why a lot of people don't report stuff, the embarrassment, the shame, or whatever. And this kind of, I don't mean to plug Casey personally, but it really does support the need for having a financial advisor. I mean, you don't have to have $1 million to have a financial advisor, but to have someone provide some type of oversight outside of your family, that is actually monitoring, and I know you don't monitor their checking account, but large transactions that are being taken out of things like that is something that you would see and necessarily their family would not see. Right. And they might be too embarrassed to even mention it.
Right, creating that relationship and having that trust with a reputable, financial advisor and financial planner.
Trusted contact. So us being a big firm and Bank of America being the parent company, we have private bankers that monitor the banking, and then we monitor brokerage. I have had people get their statements stolen out of their mailbox, and then they worry about their Merrill because they're like, well, they got my checking account number because it's right on my statement, which is kind of silly too, which doesn't make much sense. And I'm like, no, you have to do verbal verification on the phone. Like we have recorded all that information. So that's the benefit of the big companies is that we have all the tech that can prevent someone from just calling in and saying, oh, I need to move money. They can actually have to verify all this information just to protect you more. So,
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much for participating and coming as well. We have gifts for the both of you.
You spoil me. I'm not used to any of this.
it's a gift card. It's a legitimate gift card.
We going to the Dollar Tree?
For you.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's for you.
Thanks.
And just to remind everyone, so next month we're going to be back here on August 14th, and the topic is Longevity Unveiled, Understanding the Dynamics of Stage versus Age. So we all know people in our lives that are very vibrant, and they go skiing, and they're 80 years old, and everything is wonderful. It's not your age, it's the stage. It's not your age, it's the stage that you're in. And then September 11th, we're going to be talking about fall prevention and safety for seniors. So we hope to see you all next month. So a big round of applause
Thank
for
you.
Thanks, Rick.
And you're free to go. Enjoy the rest
Feel
of the
free
day.
to take their information,
Display
and they'll stick
information
around
there.
for a few minutes if you have more individual questions for them.